director. But we kick off with our first speaker, and that's Martijn Driessen.
Let me switch to the presentation. Is okay, you see the presentation now?
Yep.
Yes, Bart, can I go on as everyone sees the presentation?
Yeah, it's clear.
Okay, that is great. So, well, welcome. Thank you very much for joining. Today we're going to talk about the entrepreneurial mindset development. And as Bart already told you, I'm actually an entrepreneur with about over 25 years now, especially in mindset development. And the other is just a slight part. I'm also a scientist helping others to do research into entrepreneurship. And we're going to talk to you about three things today. What is the entrepreneurial mindset? And it was great to see there was a small poll about whether you can learn entrepreneur and what should be the focus. And specifically, we're going to talk about that. So first of all, what is the entrepreneurial mindset? Secondly, can you learn entrepreneurial to have an entrepreneurial mindset? And if so, how is that then possible? So we're going to dive in a little bit deeper into the entrepreneurial mindset. And if we talk about entrepreneurial mindset, actually, when you say entrepreneurial mindset or entrepreneur, everyone has this image in their minds instantly. So often when you talk about entrepreneur, you have a quite clear understanding of who it is. Maybe you cannot say exactly what it is about, but when you see someone, you say, okay, that is actually an entrepreneur, or it's easy to pick them out. So the question is, how does that work? Okay. So before we go into entrepreneurial mindset, let me take you to some statistics, because if you look at the survival rates of small businesses in the USA, and we're going to look at the UE as well, you see actually that.
But Martijn, sorry to interrupt, Martijn.
Sure, no
I think you've lost your. At least I don't see the slides anymore. But am I the only one, or Bart? Do you see the slides?
I see them both. I see Martijn and I see the slides, and so you can you choose the screen slides there.
Okay. If anyone else has a problem, let me know, and then. Okay.
So
the slides are amongst the screens of the participants.
All right. That's my setting. Thank you.
Okay. So everyone is good.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. No problem. So when you look at the survival rates in small businesses in the USA, actually what you see is that if you look at 5 years and you go up, it's about 50%, and it has been for decades. So it's more or less the same. So there is some, maybe even a law of starting your own business within 5 years, 50% is actually not there anymore. So 1 in 2 persons who start their business doesn't have that business anymore, is even, or worse, is even bankrupt. If we go across the Atlantic Ocean, we go to Europe, there you see actually that, although this is not in years, but this is more like, okay, 1 year, 3 years, and 5 years from the start, you see that with 5 years, around, give or take, 50% as well that actually have to stop their business or are not in business anymore. So if we teach people, young people, to have an entrepreneurial mindset, and sometimes also for entrepreneurship, then this is actually quite interesting and important. And we're going to talk about this today. So here you see actually an image that is drawn by Peter van Straten. And this is actually the summary of everything I'm going to talk to you about today in about 20 minutes. So here you see a man, I think with his wife, but it could be his secretary. Please don't hold me on that. He's coming from the Entrepreneurial University. And my question to you is, do you think this person is looking very entrepreneurial? Maybe you can raise your hand. In my mind, if I look at it, I don't think he's really entrepreneurial, but it's just what you see. You never know. it could be very well the brilliant idea person, a pioneer, and maybe together as a team, they are very, very good. So because if you look at it, she could say, yeah, of course you are not enterprising. I know that, you know that, but they don't know that. So how do you know that? He doesn't look very entrepreneurial, but you never know, right? So that is actually a little bit the difficulty that about 25 years ago that actually struck me. And that within 5 years, 1 in 2 persons stop their business. So what about the entrepreneurial mindset? So that is why I started to do my research and eventually the PhD research. So if we look at the entrepreneurial mindset, this is just an image of the scan that actually derived from the research. And here you can see with the eScan, you have an instant and accurate insight into the most important competencies that are actually part of the entrepreneurial mindset. And here I have created the profile of young people in the MENA region. So this is about 2,500 people, Middle East and North Africa, and this is their average profile. And here you see actually the power of the mindset. So that's actually the orange part, which is actually the average, and it's all within the blue line. So, and of course, this apart from anyone who takes this scan, you can see that the orange field is either diminishing or either increasing even over time. So this is just the power of mindset, how entrepreneurial really are. On the other end, on the right, you have the type of mindset. So you can imagine, of course, that some people think in different ways. For example, the pioneer is the ideas person, is always looking for innovations, for improving things, or finding solutions for problems that are not even a problem yet. On the other hand, of course, you have the manager who is actually can be very entrepreneurial, and often we say, well, you are an entrepreneur or you're not, and if you're not there, you're probably a manager. And actually, that's not quite true, because it's more like the role, their thinking style. So it is someone who is thinking in structures and is willing and wanting to grow the business, but it's not the one who comes up with the ideas. So you need all those thinking styles, and we're going to look at them a little bit deeper. So this is just an image to show you, okay, these are the most important ones, where here on the right side of the mindset, the spider chart, that are more the characteristics which are more difficult to enhance and to learn, but it is possible. We will see that later. And on the other hand, the left side is more the skills, the capabilities, things that you can learn. And the question is, how do you learn? So if we talk about the entrepreneurial mindset, this is actually the most important competencies that are part of the entrepreneurial mindset. And in between now, over 1 million people have taken the scan. So it is widely used. If we go and look what is a problem, and you see that with the young people as well as with existing entrepreneurs, those are who are established an entrepreneur. We ask them in the software, what do you think? Just on a scale from 0 to 100, just as a feeling, just tell us, what do you think? What is your entrepreneurial index? So there's the estimated one. And you can see that it's 67.2. Whereas when we have looking at the test that I did, and this is of course on average, the average is based on the profile 49.7. So there is a gap between what they think they score and what they're really scoring. And that means that actually their self-awareness is not that well. The image of themselves as an entrepreneur and what their competencies are, what are their strong points and weak points, is actually not always or not quite the case. And that can have, of course, devastating consequences. So that is very important to realize. So the scan is not so much as something to say, are you an entrepreneur or not? Because I don't think that is a good question. As we saw in the poll, it's better to look at how entrepreneurial you are, how entrepreneur are you, and how entrepreneurial do you need to be? Because it depends on the kind of business you're starting or the kind of organization you're going into. So when we talk about those competencies, You see them with entrepreneurship, with having a business, but you should also see them within an organization, and that's what we call intrapreneurship. If we look at the place and the importance, we use an alternative model of Rauch and Driessen, where you can see, of course, the knowledge, the skills and abilities, the human capital, the broad personality traits like the Big Five or the DISC and things like that. But those are about the general personality. And that's distinct from the entrepreneurial personality, the entrepreneurial traits as we see them here, that they have incorporated in their research. So that's why we created the scan. And that's why I did the research to find out, okay, can I use these models, or do we need to have a specific questionnaire that actually measures the entrepreneurial mindset? And then again, if you look here, there is a mediating effect, and there's a correlation between the business creation or the business success. But the more important part and the more important point I want to make here is actually it influences the goals and strategies. So, and that has a bigger effect and impact on the business creation or the business success of a business that's already in place there, of course. So if we look at the definition of entrepreneurship, and I know that the last masterclass, you'll also have something about the Entrecom. And if you look at the PhD thesis that I have done in 2005, actually we have more or less the same definition. So that is actually a good thing to see that the way people think about what is entrepreneurship is more or less the same. It's seizing opportunities from those who see opportunities. And there are a lot of people, that, especially also young people, that actually would like to start their business or are interested in entrepreneurship, but they think, I don't have ideas. I don't know what to come up with. So those could be maybe more the managerial types, but they could be very, very entrepreneurial. But it's always about three things: seeing opportunities, seizing or exploiting opportunities, and thirdly, creating value for yourself and others sustainably. Because if you only see opportunities and you seize them, you make them happen, but it's no value for any other, just for yourself, it's more like a hobby. When you make it valuable for others, and you can actually ask money for it and people are willing to pay you for it, then you come to more entrepreneurial behavior. And that's exactly how Entrecomp is defining it as well: the capacity to act upon opportunities and ideas and transform into value for others. And of course, value, as we also stipulate, is much more than money alone. And that's what people always think, like, okay, you're going to start your own business, so the only thing you're interested in is in making money. It is a means to an end, but I can assure you that most people don't want to start a business only because they want to earn money. There is a drive, there is something that they are doing it for. So in 2016, the Entrepreneurial framework started, came to life, and here you can see actually the more or less the same competencies that are in the eScan as well. And of course, there are a lot of all kinds of instruments and tests and things out there, but they're not always validated and scientifically sound. So these are the most important ones. And the question is how to make them happen. So, of course, you look at the one hand at the entrepreneurial mindset, and you make sure that there is a development of the mindset. And we're going to have a look how to develop it. The question is, can you develop it? Is it possible to develop? And of course, everyone says yes. And if you are in education, that's almost the only answer that you can give, because if you don't, it would be a big problem. Yet, if you ask entrepreneurs or established business owners, can you learn to be an entrepreneur? They say yes and no. Yes, because it is possible to become better. But then you need to have something like an itch and motivation. There is something which is a minimum requirement. So can everyone become an entrepreneur? I think that's maybe the more important question. So if we look at the competencies, then these are the most important ones. When you look at one hand, the attitude, the motivation, and the other hand, of course, the type of mindset, which is also very important. Especially when the company is growing, your mindset and the focus and importance of a certain mindset changes. Okay, so the question is then, of course, this is just another slide to show you how the two matches, and that these are the most important competencies, and you will all get the PDF so you can have a better look at it later on. So I won't have a look at it in too much detail yet. The question is, can you learn to become an entrepreneur? Can you, is it nurture or is it nature? And that is one of the questions that some of the researchers also have answered in a recent publication. And actually, it's much more nurture than it is nature. So nurture trumps nature. And if what they have done is looking at the children of adoptive parents and compare them with children of biological parents, and you see actually that the effect of the post-birth factors, so the upbringing, is twice as large as the pre-birth factors. So it does play a tiny role, the genes, but it's not a big role. So that is actually, we know what the competencies are. And the question, can you develop it? Yes, it is possible. The question is, and this is not what the research answered, how can you develop it? So let's have a look at it now. So this is just an image of the software that we deliver, and we're focused, as I said, on entrepreneurial learning. So this is where we want to look at not only assessing it, but especially how can you learn? What needs to be done to create an entrepreneurial mindset? So entrepreneurial learning is all that we care about.
Martijn, it's 15 minutes, Martijn.
15 minutes, yes, perfect. Thank you very much. If you look at the all kinds of tests or questionnaires, whatever you use, the thing is you should combine it with team coaching or with coaching. One-on-one coaching would be the best, but often within classes that's not possible. So team coaching could be there as well. But we will talk about that later as well. So whatever tool, whatever test you use, whatever, because there's lots out of there in the internet, but that all of them are that good or that valuable actually. So if you look at learning entrepreneurship, then of course you have the knowledge transfer on the one hand. That's a traditional learning, structured way, which is very different from the personal development, because there you really learn how to be entrepreneurial, and it helps to grow the tree that harvests much more fruit. So it's all about applied learning, peer learning, gamification, self-learning, reflective learning, but also feed-forward learning. Not only looking back, what have you done, but also what can you do next time better, or how do you know that you won't do the same mistake again? And I think this is also something that you saw in Masterclass 1 by Marco, or I think it's David. So I'm going to switch to another. If we look at what we have done with students, we were part of the Young Enterprise Student Company program. Actually, the best way to learn an entrepreneurial mindset is through learning by doing and coaching. Because entrepreneurship education is far broader than just entrepreneurial skills and skills development. And what happens mostly is that when there is a instrument, a questionnaire, whatever it is, students do it, and that's it. Nothing is done about it. It's just, have a look at it, and maybe you can recognize yourself. That is just maybe the first part, or just a small part of a far bigger part that you should be doing. And the best way is of gamification is really getting out there, is working, and a fictional company program will be the best. And what we have seen with the data that we have is that not only the attitude, the characteristics, the traits, which are more difficult to develop, grew, but especially also the skills, which are easier to develop. So their mindset really grew when we took a pre and a post test. Okay. What we also have done is looking at established entrepreneurs, or those who wanted or are on the verge of starting a business of their own. And these are aggregated programs, so about 3 programs in a row. And what we see is the blue line, which is the second measurement compared to the first measurement. And what we actually see is that those orange that are in orange beside the table or the figure, those are significantly. So they are influenced by the coaching. And it was a year program. The participant could choose their coach, and that helped them to actually focus on one hand, the entrepreneurial mindset, entrepreneurial skills development. On the other hand, the business, that could be finance strategy or marketing or things like that. It has also been leading to more inclusive entrepreneurship, as reported by the OECD. So yes, entrepreneurship is possible to develop with young people, and especially also with those who have a business or want to grow a business. And we're almost to the last slide. What we also have done, because this is a year program, after 5 years, we have been looking back. And just to find out, okay, we know that the average of companies that actually survive in 5 years is about 50%, give or take. So with this program, based on the eScan coaches and the training of coaches to help develop the skills of entrepreneurs and those who want to become an entrepreneur, after 5 years, almost 90% are still in business. So that is actually a great improvement, and not all of them have been growing or have a big business. Sometimes it's much more that they know that they have to be a solo entrepreneur, and they're very happy with that. So recommendations for implementation, and this is almost the last slide. Focus on skills development and also attitude, the motivation, which is very important, because that's the requirement, the pre-requirement, and on top of that you can work on skills development. Preferably with a pre and post measurement to show growth and impact. Also to those who do the scan, you can see how well they have grown and actually measure, does it help? Is it working? Am I becoming more entrepreneurial in the ways that they want? It's also very important actually to create an enterprising culture as early on as possible. They see it everywhere, because sometimes it takes a little while before people actually become engaged, before it hits them. Also for startups, not only around the ideas, I think it's also important to look for entrepreneurial mindsets and to make sure that the right mindsets are combined through team analysis. Teaching, as we have seen, is very different from entrepreneurial coaching. So it's a different role. And I think that the training and education of teachers should be there as well. And maybe that's something that Bart and Arjan will talk about as well. And also to look for, but also give room to team diversity based on the entrepreneurial mindset profiles. But because most of the times people are brought together, they form a group, but they look at different things. And actually what you should look at is, okay, are the right types of mindsets together that really can help? Because a lot of teams, a lot of business ventures don't make it to the end because there's friction. So that's something to learn as well. And last but not least, teachers must take the role of the coach, because they are the catalysts, but they need to know what to do. So that was the presentation. Thank you. And I think I'm pronouncing it well. It's Falemen did it. Thank you.
Thank you, Martijn. This was inspiring. I hope for everybody it was for us. Would be great that if you stay around to answer some questions in the Q&A. So sure. No Eric, as let's say third facilitator of preneurs in this program, will take over. You know each other, so that should be easy.
Yes, Eric. Hi, Martijn. How are you doing?
I'm fine, thank you, Eric.
Okay, it's good to hear and see you again, although it's in a slightly strange way in the MS Teams. Martijn, there's some questions coming in.
Yes, sure.
And I'll pick a few that I see. One is referring to a slide that you have shown on the entrepreneurial index, and the question is, since the real entrepreneurial index is smaller than the estimated index, what is really missing, or what is difficult to apply in real life from all the set and skills and competences that you've shown in the picture? So in my own words, what do you think are the easy ones and the more difficult ones from your set of skills and competencies?
Okay. When we look at on average, that we see is that the traits, as you have seen also in the slide where you saw the first measurement and the second measurement, that with the competencies, the traits like the need for achievement or the endurance, the autonomy, those are risk-taking, those are more difficult for a lot of them to really understand about. And that's where they think they are a risk taker, because I'm thinking about entrepreneurship, so I must be a risk taker. That's not always the case. So the traits are far more difficult, and also people trying to mistaken them. Because with the skills, it's much easier for them to say, yeah, I know I'm not that very good at it. But still, that's on an average. When we look per person, it can be very different. Mm-hmm. And that's also where the most of the time the shock comes. Like people say, hey, I thought I was quite good at this, but I'm not. That's not true. Can be right. The test is false. So that's where it's really what's going on, what's really working, what's really the case.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Hey, Martijn, thank you very much. Another question is coming in is if you teach entrepreneurship as a university teacher, not being an entrepreneur yourself, what kind of interventions you can do as a teacher, not being an entrepreneur, coaching or instructing a student who wants to be an entrepreneur or more entrepreneurial? Mm-hmm. What is your advice there?
I think that where you would like to think that those who teach entrepreneurship should be an entrepreneur themselves. That would also mean like you have to be an entrepreneur to coach other entrepreneurs. In both ways, it's not right. In my opinion, it's much more important to know how to coach, which is just a different way of teaching. And you don't have to be an entrepreneur or to be entrepreneurial for that matter. It's all about looking at the students, looking at what really ticks them and how to help them trust themselves and grow themselves, rather than telling them what to do. And what you see with entrepreneurs is they actually know what they would do in their situation. It's more like being a mentor, but then they give answers or they don't help the person because it's like, yeah, I understand what you're saying, but that's not my situation, or I don't know how to apply it in my situation. So I think that teachers should be, it would be better for them to take up on coach courses than to be entrepreneur or to start a business of their own, just to experience. It can help, but it doesn't make the difference to help others become more entrepreneurial.
Okay, thank you. Another question is about the team formation of students. You're saying in your presentation that somewhere that the formation of teams is very vital for success, and a different mindset, the different characters in the team. What, in your view, people can do to stimulate the right team formation?
Well, actually have a close look at their own profile and then look at their profiles of others. And a team of 4 is probably the best. So a small team, not too big, not too large, but there should be diverse, not only in the type of thinking, but also in the entrepreneurial mindset, as well as in what people are good at. And those are more like the business skills. So there's like accounting, strategy, marketing, things like that. So the more diverse the team is, the better the chances are of making it to the end and being much more successful. But it starts with looking at themselves and through the eyes of others, looking at themselves to be honest about, okay, this is a weak point, but maybe someone else has that as a strong point and they can match it together.
Okay. Thank you. Is there still time for more questions, Arjan?
Yes.
Okay, sorry, Bart, is there more time for questions? And another question, Martijn, is about failure. I mean, in education, the question is, in education, we're not used to, if you fail the course, right? But you said in the beginning, most entrepreneurial teams fail in their endeavor to be entrepreneurial. How to deal with failure in education when students become entrepreneurial teams and still motivate them in going on?
Yes, I think the most important thing with failure is that you only fail when you stop, when you fall down. If you pick up again and you learn and you can actually tell what went wrong and what your part in it, that is actually a success, because that's something that you've learned, and luckily within entrepreneurship education. I started my business actually right when I was still a student, and we didn't have any entrepreneurship education. It's more like, yeah, well, it's up to you, because we were taught to become a manager at some organization or company. So the expensive lessons learned were in my business, during my business. So I think that, and it's a little bit maybe even European, but especially Dutch, when you fail, then you're a loser. But only if you understand that failing is a part of the process and it helps you actually to become better the next time, yeah, then you have a different perspective of what is failure. And that's actually what should be taught within the entrepreneurial university or entrepreneurship education.
Okay. Maybe one more question, Bart?
Very, very short, with a very short answer, maybe.
Yeah, well,
yes or no?
I'm not sure if Martijn is able to answer it. It's very short because it's my question.
Okay.
It's not in the chat. You didn't have that much time to go in detail in the tool that you developed, the assessment tool. You have shown some of the pictures. My question is, how can you, in your opinion, use these kind of assessment tools, be it yours or any other, within a course? What would be the best way to integrate or use these kind of tools in your course?
I think that and to give a very short answer, is not only do it at the beginning as a checkbox that is done, but really make sure that it comes back and reflect back on what the answers are, what the reports are, because it is a journey to become more entrepreneurial and to understand and to get more self-awareness and to understand, oh, now I understand what I'm doing wrong, how I can do it differently, or this is a weak point, will never be a strong point, so I need to find someone else.
Okay, thank you very much, Martijn.
Thank you.
There's one other question.
Bart?
Sorry, but there's one other question, which is a typically Dutch question that I would ask. Can I get access to the tool, and is it for free, for example? Like, can we actually get in and use the tool, or is it something we have to pay for?
Well, it very depends on the situation and things like that. But of course, if you want to just check it out, it's free, of course. So I can get into details like this is the price or it's always free. It depends on the situation and the number of students. So yeah, if you're interested, maybe we can have a talk later on then.
Okay.
Okay, great. Thank you very much again, Martijn. We go into a break now, and that's not a breakout room, but that's a break, and you are free to have your break or to stay around, because maybe there are still some questions in the Q&A, and Martijn could stay around also. So let's see if there are some more questions, but feel free to have that break, but please be back at 17:59, because at 1800 we will start sharp, because the second part of the program is even a bit more full. So we have this time pressure still. So have a break or stay for some further Q&A. We will move to the next speaker in a few seconds. I think some people are still coming back from the break. This is Bram, as you already mentioned, involved in minor and master. University of Amsterdam, the minor, and a course, the minor at the University of Amsterdam. The master is a combined course of University of Amsterdam and the Vrije Universiteit Amsterdam. These are both very big universities in Amsterdam, and he will share his insights and illustrate that with these courses. Bram, the floor is yours.
All right, thank you so much. And of course, I will start my slides somewhere. All right. I assume you see my slides. If not, then shout. So indeed, my name is Bram Kuijken. Just a short introduction about myself. So in general, my purpose in life is to further close the gap between education and practice. I've been working for the University of Amsterdam for about 12 years up till now, and involved in entrepreneurship education for over 6 years. Currently, as Bart said, I coordinate a couple of programs, the Master Entrepreneurship. I'm the co-director because it's a joint program, the UvA and the VU together. So I have a counterpart at the VU. So 2 captains on 1 ship, but we are still not in a fight, so that's great. And then I'm coordinating the minor entrepreneurship, and that's fully offered by the University of Amsterdam. Next to that, I tend also to be a little bit entrepreneurial. So I founded StartupAndRunning. That's basically a startup mentoring platform. So students, but actually also alumni can find startup mentors that can help them to prevent them to make wrong decisions. And then I started Master Challenge a year ago, and that basically bridges the gap between education and practice by allowing students to work on real life challenges. So that's me in a nutshell. I enjoy quite a lot what I'm doing, especially the entrepreneurship teaching, but also being entrepreneurial. Especially, in terms of the entrepreneurship teaching, it's just great to see those students create new things and actually get stuff happening. But to directly dive into this question that was initially posted by Arjan through Menti, I was actually surprised, to be honest, that 12 mentioned that the focus should be on skills, developing entrepreneurial skills instead of starting a business. So I was one of the 2 who indicated you need to focus on starting a business. So most of the rest of my talk will be actually focused on that. I actually wonder who the other one person was, but I think you learn those skills by actually starting a business. Otherwise, it's very difficult, I think, to learn those skills in real life. So I will dive a little bit deeper into the minor and the master entrepreneurship, but I will not be explaining the full programs in detail. I will share, course outlines and the program later on, so you can dive into that yourself. But I just highlight a couple of important elements, and then I will present 3 main elements that I think are important when teaching entrepreneurship. And then, of course, I mention a couple of examples from my own teaching. So in general, in my teaching, our promise towards the students is that they will become more entrepreneurial. Through knowledge, of course, they need to gain knowledge in order to prevent themselves making wrong decisions. You need that knowledge. But of course, also the skills. So what skills do you need to actually be a successful entrepreneur? And then especially also the attitude. You need to have this entrepreneurial attitude, or you need to have experienced the feel of this attitude when setting up a business. So the minor entrepreneurship in a nutshell. So we have 80 to 100 students, 30 credits, and we have 3 courses, and it's a 6-month program. So those 3 courses consist of entrepreneurship in practice, where they actually set up a business. So this course runs throughout the whole semester, and then 2 other courses. One is Cases in Entrepreneurship, which focuses a bit more on knowledge, but also applying this knowledge through real-life company challenges. And then the 3rd course in this program is Startup Psychology. So we teach students a couple of psychological theories and frameworks that they can actually directly apply to their own while setting up a business. So, for example, we teach them the cognitive biases, for example, the confirmation bias, that you want to confirm your prior beliefs. That I think is one of the most important elements or risks for entrepreneurs when setting up a business. But also, for example, the persuasion elements from Cialdini. How can you persuade people to buy stuff they, well, initially did not plan to buy? All right. So the minor entrepreneurship, it's not only business students. It's the student body is about 50% business students. But I actually actively recruit. Yeah, let's call it recruiting students from other faculties, even other universities, and especially the more beta, the more hacker type of students. So I present the minor at, for example, the science faculty. So in general, the background is the 50% business, and then 20% beta and some communication science and some other social science. And I think this is important because you want to have this diverse background to have business ideas and more creative business ideas. Because if you have only, I call them the hustlers, the business students in a room, they only talk, they only hustle. I'm a bit cliche here, but and if you put the hackers in only one room, they only build, and then the hipsters, so the hackers, the hipsters, and the hustlers should be combined, and then magic can happen, and that's also how I, stimulate them to form teams. They can form teams themselves, but ideally you want to have a hacker, a hipster, and a hustler in a team. Those are not terms I came up with, but a couple of investors that I work with who give keynote talks. Actually, he came up with this, but I think it's very relevant for the minor entrepreneurship as well. So the minor is basically a third-year course, and it's the first experience being an entrepreneur. And we teach them the entrepreneurship essentials. So then the master entrepreneurship, also 80 to 100 students. Again, a diverse background. We used to only admit students who have done business courses, but actually when I took over a couple of years ago, I said, no, let's have a more diverse background. And it's a one-year program, and basically it's even a more of a deep dive into entrepreneurship. And so whereas in the minor we only teach 1 week on social entrepreneurship, in the master entrepreneurship it's a full 6-credit course. It's also about bringing to life value-adding opportunities, and the opportunities they need to identify tend to be a little bit more complex, so they will solve more complex and innovative problems. So, but the main things I want to talk about in this session are 3 crucial elements, at least according to me, after 6 years of teaching entrepreneurship, which are important. So that's, this might not be completely new to you, but learning by doing, it should be real and relevant, and ownership. So learning by doing, so to talk with use the words of Steve Blank, one of the foundational fathers of the lean startup methodology, you need to get out of the building. The facts are not within the building. And that's actually one of the biggest reasons why startups fail, is that there's just no market need. And that's because entrepreneurs start building a product, and then they realize that nobody actually wants it. So to eliminate the risk of building something that nobody wants, students, they need to get out of the building to actually test their assumptions and quickly run experiments to align their assumptions with reality. So Steve Blank also coined this framework. It's called the Customer Development Framework. So basically this, I often use this, at least the first 2 parts in my teaching. And so especially the customer discovery and the customer validation, because, the customer creation and scaling up, that's not doable, obviously, in just a couple of months. But the customer discovery is basically first about the problem solution fit. So first, when my students start in the minor entrepreneurship, for example, start thinking about business ideas, I tell them, start with the problem. Don't start with the solution, because if you have a solution but nobody has a problem, then nobody buys your solution. So start with the problem, first validate whether the problem actually exists, start talking to people, and then come up with a solution that actually fits the problem. And in this first phase, you also test or build a quick MVP and actually test that. And then once you have some initial validation, you can go to the more to the product market fit, where you actually start selling your product, and hopefully you also make some profit, and then you get closer to product market fit. But this, finding this fit only happens when you get out of the building, when you start talking to people. You must be familiar with the Lean Startup methodology, so that's also what I need. I teach in my in the minor, but also in the Master Entrepreneurship. And how I sell this internally, because sometimes still people within universities mention that that it is way too practical. I just mentioned, okay, but this Lean Startup methodology is very similar to academic research. And you have your knowledge, you draft you draft a couple of assumptions, you gather data, and you analyze it, and then you're a step closer to the truth. And so that's how I normally sell it internally in the university. So this might be an argument for you. So what should you focus on, or why is this getting out of the building really important? It's relevant for not only for ideation but also for validation. And normally what happens with my students, they have no idea, or most of them have no idea, what kind of business idea they should pursue. So first I just ask them to get out of the building to find a problem that's worth solving. And if you don't force your students to do that, then they might come up with rather simple problems that they encounter themselves, and that's okay if you solve your own problem. However, if you don't do extensive research, then probably those business ideas might not be of the highest quality, because if you really dive into a business or an industry, then you're much better able to find actual problems that are worth solving. For that, you can use design thinking, but also tools such as the mom test that forces you to come up with questions that not even your mom can lie about. I'm not going to go into detail, just Google the mom test and you will find a nice book. But it's widely used in the startup world. And you want students to talk to experts to get a better understanding of a certain industry and to actually find problems that are worth solving. And so mainly the first week for both the minor entrepreneurship, but also for the other course I teach in the master entrepreneurship, I just tell them, start talking to people, find problems worth solving, talk to industry experts, ask them what are the important dynamics in this industry to find those problems. Well, that's kind of the ideation phase, and finding opportunities that are interesting. And then at some point, I normally force them to very quickly build and test an MVP. And with an MVP, that can be as simple as just a landing page. And I often use the 1 hour MVP challenge, and MVP stands for minimum viable product. So which is basically a product to actually test actual customer behavior in a very simple and quick way. And so the 1 hour MVP challenge, and I have a link later on in this presentation that will be shared, where you can see how I set up this MVP challenge. Feel free to copy that. But I just ask them to build a quick landing page and actually share this landing page with their friends and family to see how people behave on the website. And you can implement all kinds of tools to actually test how people behave on this on the website. Yeah, because that's I think the holy grail to not fall into the trap of your confirmation bias. To actually test actual customer behavior that ideally proves your assumptions wrong or right, ideally right, but you need to be open, or the students need to be open that their assumptions might not be true. Yeah. Right. So the second thing that I think is crucial is that what they do feels real and relevant. And there's actually scientific research that shows that if students perceive, what they do as relevant, that it has a positive effect on their motivation. If they are motivated, they work harder and they most likely learn more. And I believe that, what I see with my students is the students who work harder, and this is no rocket science, but the students who just do more and work more hours, they get more done, and they get more traction in the market. And that's where you see that students really get engaged in their with their studies. And yeah, this is the biggest compliment a student gave me. So he said the startup project, which is one of the courses in the Master Entrepreneurship, did not feel like a course. It felt like a learning experience. So when I read that, I thought, okay, mission kind of accomplished, because they really want, you don't want them to feel it like a course basically, but really that they learn, and that they feel that it's real and relevant, and that they are motivated.
Sorry, Bram.
Sorry,
Bram. It's 15 minutes now.
Okay. So how I achieve this is by asking my students to solve real life challenges and to actually let them set up a real startup. So real life challenges, I mean no historic or hypothetical cases, but real assignments from real companies, similar to consulting assignments. This is quite a lot of work to arrange that, but students very much appreciate it if they can actually work together with a company. So one of the examples is the venture challenge that should be focused on an entrepreneurial topic, such as testing new value propositions, exploring new markets, etc. And while asking them to set up a startup, again, ask them to find problems that are actually worth solving. I normally tell them that this is the only course where they can get a high grade if they fail a lot. So this discussion also popped up in the previous keynote talk, but tell them that failure is actually okay, and even make this into a weekly assignment, that they need to fail at least once every week. Yeah, so one final thing that might be interesting for you as an assignment. So my students have to divide shares among each other. Just to prevent free riding, you can ask them to divide 100 shares among the whole team, and then this might have an effect on their individual grade. But I will share this assignment in the things that can be sent later on. The third element is ownership, that I think is really important. So the number one reason to become an entrepreneur is, that most people want to be their own boss. They want autonomy. So what I implement in my teaching is that I let them make their own decisions, for example, in terms of their business idea or their team, or even the industry they want to focus on. However, it's important, and that can be a challenge for entrepreneurship lectures. You need to set a couple of boundaries to make sure that they have at least some focus. So what I normally do is I share this image with them, where I say, okay, if you want to have a high grade, then make sure that you are in the potentially high grade zone, so the gray area, and that's divided by or identified by the impact on the market in terms of commercial impact and the level of innovativeness. Or this one, the idea you come up with should be desirable, viable, and feasible, and there's a sweet spot. You want to give them some ownership in terms of finding their teammates, share these kind of things, so they have some guidelines what to look for. And in general, I tend not to teach them, but rather guide them. So with weekly coaching sessions, so I was very happy with Martijn that he said, hey, you really need to coach those students. I fully agree. So I actually provide them an assortment of online courses and content to choose from, so they can pick and choose their own assignments that they think are relevant to work on to achieve, a certain goal. I let them form or develop a portfolio where they just indicate what they have been doing. I use the tool Rocket DNA, that's kind of Trello for startups. So you can monitor what kind of If you're not sure what Trello is, then just Google it, but you can just check what they have been doing. And I've set up StartupAndRunning to get students access to a large mentor pool. Yeah, so I think I'm running out of time, luckily, and this is my final slide. So this is basically the summary here: learning by doing, make it real and relevant, and let them take ownership and make sure that they actually can do that. So Bart, back to you.
Thank you very much. Well, great. Nice story. There is room for questions. Maybe you can stop sharing the screen, and then
yeah, there's the button.
And then Eric will take over with a few questions. Eric, are you in?
Yeah, I'm in. Hi, Bram.
Hey, Eric.
Yeah, if anyone, any of the participants have a question and feel that they are better in raising a question than I am, just raise your hand. I suppose that you can also ask the questions yourself if you want to, but I have a couple of questions coming in. Just starting, you said students come from all sorts of disciplines in your course. Are you selecting, or is it free for everyone? Everyone is applying can join, or is it? Are you selecting students?
No, I'm not selecting students. I wish I was able or allowed to do that. Even if it provides you a lot of work, but I'm not selecting students. No, there is a cap on the maximum amount of students. So the only selection that's there is the entry requirements.
What are the entry requirements?
So for the minor, it's basically that they completed their first year. That's it. So anyone can join, and that also results in students that find out after the minor that entrepreneurship is not something for them, which is perfectly fine. For the master entrepreneurship, we added a requirement which is called Entrepreneurial Affinity. So they need to have proven entrepreneurial affinity either by having done courses on entrepreneurship or being a founder of a startup.
Okay.
So yeah, that's what we want in the master entrepreneurship. Entrepreneurial minds, which also has a downside because they are very entrepreneurial and they know how to, they will find you if they need something. So, but yeah.
Okay. The other question is about, you were talking about the platform you are running for mentors, and you also involve a lot of mentors in the course. Are you paying these mentors? And if you're not paying them, how do you motivate them to be part of your course and spend enough time?
No, I'm not paying them. And I don't think I need to motivate them. My students need to motivate them. So what I tell my students is that I say there's a whole bunch of mentors waiting for you, but you need to earn their time and their knowledge and their experience and their network. So the students need to sell themselves to them by also showing progress, asking the right questions. Yeah, and it's, to be honest, rather easy, at least here in Amsterdam, to find mentors. So if I just share, a request on my LinkedIn, I easily have 10 or 15 more mentors. The problem is even the other way around, that I have not enough students for all the mentors that actually want to help out.
How do you grade the students? I mean, it's still a university course is a question, so you have to give a grade at the end, or are you not giving a grade? And if you give a grade, how do you grade the students?
Yeah, so ideally, ideally I don't grade them at all, but we have to indeed. So yeah, I do have a grading grid I can actually share later on with you. That focuses on the quality of the business ID, the how convincing the results are, of the validation results, yeah, these kind of things. But it's to be honest, it's rather there is a level of subjectivity. So ideally I go for a go or just a no go. And that's what I partly implemented last year. So throughout the 6 months for the minor entrepreneurship, I have 3 moments where I give them a non-binding
here.
Yes, but if we can do some questions after 7, because Bram is willing to stay a bit, and so we can do that. But it's a really tight schedule. We are moving to the breakout rooms. I'm so sorry. Thank you very much, Bram and Eric, and maybe see you. Of their rooms. So there are chairpersons already at rooms, and if there are some I would say, Stefan, let's make the breakout rooms.
Excellent. I think everyone is getting back into the room. Let me see just for the numbers. If everyone is here, let me see then.
So what we really like, and we all agree about that, is the concept we want to make innovation, entrepreneurship, but you actually have to start from the
year, and this year obviously comes back. So the great thing about this year is that we're actually going to try and do get out of the building in the next part of this program. So we will pay some attention to that.
This is what we have done. Huh? This is the end of Masterclass 2, and what's coming next? 2 days of experiential learning. Of course, get more insights in methods and tools, because this is learning by doing, and to do that you have certain approaches. You already have heard certain terminology like lean startup, like customer development. We will use tools as business model canvas. Bram mentioned the MOM test. You will learn about that. So it's really the experience of the student that will help you to develop not only skills and understand tools and methods, but also maybe understand something about your own entrepreneurial attitude and skills. And you will need these also probably to implement a new way of learning in your institute. So when is this? Originally, we planned to do this on location in Tirana, of course, and we would have loved to come, but that will be impossible before the summer. So we will do that online, and we haven't decided yet exactly when, but there will an evaluation will follow, of course, as usual. After these masterclasses, we will include 1 or 2 questions about the 2 days, the planning of the 2 days, the format of that, and but it will be soon. So originally we planned before the beginning of April, and maybe it's going to be even sooner, but that has to be decided yet. I think it's going to be a lot of fun for you, and also you will have these insights and not only the experience. And of course, I also, before I forget, thank you for submitting the assignments. Half of you did submit. We would love to receive more, because we really want to use it also to develop our program, well, more in detail, of course, and we can connect to your expectations and your needs, and possible your obstacles or hurdles, and we love to do that. So please do send in the questionnaire still if you haven't done it, or and fill in the evaluation that will follow probably tomorrow or the day after tomorrow. We will stay open after 7, as mentioned before. So if you have any questions regarding process or content, you can stick around. Well, Bram will stay around, and also maybe Martijn is still around. So feel free to stay, but also feel free to have your dinner. I go back to Arjen.
Thank you, Bart. Well, I see one hand up for Stefan, and I think you know what he wants. But first of all, before we do that, Stefan, and I'll hand over to you. But I want to thank Bram and Martijn in particular. Like, it was really interesting to hear you speak and share your experiences with the colleagues in Albania. So I thought it was very interesting. Obviously, for all the participants, we will share the information after the masterclass. So all of the tips and tricks and all the slides and links will be available for you as well. And we really encourage you to dive in and try and play around with the tools and with the concepts that you've been presented with. So that's for us. I think, Stefan, do you want everyone to have their video on, right?
Yes, please switch all your video on. And so it's already 7 p.m. end of business day. We have spent a lot of time in front of our computer today, and please give you all a big applause. And also Bram and Martijn, for the great presentations, and unmute yourself so that we can hear all the noise you are making. And now is the switch your camera. Go on. I will take the chance to make a picture of you. Okay. Yeah, as you know, we will stay around. We will hang around, open for questions. Feel free. Thank you.